The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the Boston sidewalks into rivers of reflected neon. And Keira Owens was absolutely certain someone had been following her for the past 3 blocks. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she clutched her purse tighter, her sensible flats splashing through puddles as she quickened her pace. The museum had kept her late again, cataloging a new shipment of Renaissance paintings that had arrived from Florence. As the assistant curator, she often found herself alone in the building after hours, lost in the beauty of brushstrokes and gold leaf, forgetting entirely that the rest of the world had gone home. But now, at nearly 10 at night, with rain soaking through her blazer and the streets mostly empty, she regretted not calling for a car. The footsteps behind her maintained their steady rhythm. Not faster, not slower, just there, always there. Keira's apartment was still 2 blocks away. She considered ducking into a shop, but most were closed at this hour. Her phone was buried somewhere in her purse, and stopping to fish it out felt dangerous. She could feel eyes on her back, could sense the presence growing closer despite the sound of rain drowning out everything else. She turned the corner onto Newberry Street, her breath coming faster now, panic rising in her throat like bile. The footsteps followed, definitely followed. This was not paranoia or coincidence. Then, without warning, a hand gripped her elbow. Keira spun around, a scream building in her lungs, but before she could release it, a voice cut through the storm. Low, commanding, and utterly calm. "Don't look," the man said, stepping between her and the shadowy figure that had been trailing her through the rain-soaked streets. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive coat that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Even in the dim light from the street lamps, she could see the sharp angles of his jaw, the intensity in his dark eyes. He positioned himself as a wall between her and whatever danger lurked behind. "Keep walking," he continued, his voice never rising above that steady, authoritative tone. "There's a restaurant half a block up. Go inside, tell them Bennett sent you, wait for me there. But trust me, go now." Something in his voice made her obey. Keira turned and walked, forcing herself not to run, not to look back, even though every instinct screamed at her to do both. Her legs felt like water, but she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, until she reached the warm glow of a French bistro she had walked past 100 times but never entered. The moment she pushed through the door, warmth and the scent of garlic and wine enveloped her. A hostess approached with a professional smile that faltered when she saw Keira's soaked clothes and pale face. Bennett sent me," Keira managed, her voice shaking. The hostess's expression shifted immediately to one of concern. "Of course. Right this way, please." She was led to a quiet corner table, given a plush towel to dry off, and offered a glass of red wine that she accepted with trembling hands. The restaurant was half empty, just a few couples finishing late dinners, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded outside. Keira sat there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 minutes, her mind racing. Who was that man? What had happened to her follower? Should she call the police? And why had the hostess reacted to his name like it was a magic word? Then the door opened and he walked in. He looked completely unfazed by the rain, though his dark hair was wet and slicked back from his face. He moved with the kind of confidence that suggested he owned every room he entered. Maybe he did. He spotted her immediately and crossed the restaurant in long strides. "Are you all right?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her without waiting for an invitation. Keira nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. "I don't know what happened. Who was that person? Should I call the police?" "Already done," he said. "I called them while I was following you both. They picked him up 2 minutes ago. Turns out he's been doing this to women in this neighborhood for weeks. You're safe now." Relief flooded through her so intensely that tears sprang to her eyes. She blinked them back furiously, embarrassed. "Thank you. I don't even know how to thank you properly." "You probably saved my life." "Bennett Lawrence," he said, extending his hand across the table. His grip was firm, warm, steady. Everything she did not feel in that moment. Keira Owens. She managed a weak smile. "I should probably ask how you knew something was wrong, but honestly, I'm just grateful you did. I was leaving a business dinner a few blocks back when I noticed him following you. The way he was moving, keeping distance but matching your pace exactly. I've seen that kind of predatory behavior before." His jaw tightened. I was not going to let it play out. A waiter appeared, and Bennett ordered food without asking her if she wanted any. Soup, bread, something hot. She should have been annoyed at the presumption, but instead she felt cared for. Protected. When had anyone last made her feel that way? "You come here often?" she asked, then immediately winced at how cliché that sounded. "Sorry, that came out like a bad pickup line. I just meant, the hostess knew your name." "I own the building," Bennett said simply. "The restaurant leases the ground floor from me. I live upstairs." Of course he did. Of course this handsome stranger who had just rescued her from a stalker also happened to own prime real estate on Newberry Street. Keira looked down at her wine glass, suddenly very aware of her drenched clothes, her messy hair, her complete lack of composure. "You're shivering," Bennett observed. Before she could protest, he had shrugged off his coat and draped it around her shoulders. It smelled like expensive cologne and rain. "Better. You don't have to, I want to," he interrupted gently. "Let me do this. You've had a terrible scare." The food arrived, and Keira discovered she was ravenous. The French onion soup was perfect, rich and hot, and she ate without worrying about appearances or manners. Bennett watched her with something that might have been amusement, but it was not unkind. "So what do you do, Keira Owens, that keeps you out walking alone at 10 at night in the rain?" "I work at the Museum of Fine Arts," she said between bites. "Assistant curator for European paintings. We got a new collection in today and I lost track of time. It happens more often than it should." "You love it," he said. It was not a question. "I do. Art history was always my passion. Getting to work with actual masterpieces, pieces that have survived centuries, that have been touched by hands that are long gone. It feels like keeping history alive." She stopped, embarrassed by her own enthusiasm. "Sorry, I get carried away." "Don't apologize for passion," Bennett said. His dark eyes held hers. "It's rare. Most people sleepwalk through their lives doing things they hate. You light up when you talk about your work. That's valuable." Keira felt her cheeks warm, and not from the soup. "What about you? What do you do when you're not rescuing damsels in distress?" "Real estate development, mostly. I buy old buildings, restore them, bring them back to life. Similar to what you do, actually. Preserving history while making it functional for modern life." He paused. "Though tonight's rescue mission was definitely not on my agenda. I'm glad I was in the right place at the right time." They talked for over an hour. The restaurant began closing around them, but no one asked them to leave. Bennett told her about growing up in Boston, about taking over his father's small construction company after college, and turning it into a multi-million-dollar development firm. He spoke about buildings the way she spoke about paintings, with love and careful attention to detail. Keira found herself relaxing, laughing, forgetting entirely about the terror of half an hour before. Finally, reluctantly, she glanced at her watch. "It's almost midnight. I should get home. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "I will drive you," Bennett said, in that same tone that brooked no argument. "That's really not necessary, Keira." He leaned forward. "I am not letting you walk home alone tonight or take the train or call a car service. I will drive you personally, walk you to your door, and make sure you're safely inside. This is not negotiable." Something in her chest fluttered. When was the last time a man had been this protective of her? When was the last time she had let one? "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." His car was parked in a private garage beneath the building. Of course, it was a sleek black Mercedes, all leather interior and quiet power. Keira gave him her address in the South End, and they drove through rain-slicked streets in comfortable silence. When he pulled up in front of her brownstone apartment building, Bennett insisted on walking her up all 3 flights to her door. He waited while she fumbled with her keys, her hands still slightly shaky. "You're sure you're all right?" he asked as she finally got the door open. "I am now." "Thanks to you." Keira looked up at him, this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere like something from a storybook. "I don't know how to repay you for what you did tonight, Bennett." "Have dinner with me," he said. "Tomorrow night, somewhere nice. Let me take you out properly when you're not terrified and soaking wet." Her heart skipped. "Are you asking me on a date?" "Yes." No hesitation, no games, just straightforward honesty. "I would very much like to see you again, Keira, under better circumstances." She should probably say no. She should probably be cautious, sensible. She knew nothing about this man except that he owned buildings and rescued women from stalkers and had eyes that seemed to see right through her. "Yes," she heard herself say. "I'd like that." His smile transformed his entire face. "Give me your number. I will call you tomorrow to arrange details." After he left, Keira stood in her quiet apartment, still wearing his coat, and tried to process what had just happened. She had been followed, rescued, and asked on a date by a mysterious millionaire who happened to be ridiculously handsome. It felt like the plot of a romance novel, not real life, but the coat around her shoulders was real. The business card he had pressed into her hand with his phone number was real, and the way her heart raced when she thought about seeing him again was definitely, undeniably real. She slept poorly that night, her dreams a confused tangle of danger and dark eyes, and a voice saying, "Don't look," said the millionaire, stepping between her and the man who had been following her home. Bennett called at 10 the next morning, right as Keira was settling into her office at the museum. His voice on the phone sent that same flutter through her chest. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Not really." "You?" "No, I kept thinking about you, wondering if you were all right." He paused. "That probably sounds too intense for someone I just met." "It sounds honest," Keira said softly. "I appreciate honest. Dinner tonight. There's a place in the North End, Italian, family-owned. Best pasta in Boston. Is 7 too early?" 7 is perfect. "I will pick you up at 6:30. Keira spent the entire day distracted, staring at paintings without really seeing them, making notes that did not quite make sense. Her colleague Maya noticed immediately. "Okay, what happened to you?" Maya demanded over lunch in the museum cafe. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The look. Like something happened." "Spill." So Keira told her everything. The stalker, the rescue, Bennett Lawrence and his intense eyes and protective instincts. Maya listened with growing excitement. "Wait, Bennett Lawrence? As in Lawrence Development? Keira, do you know who that is?" "He said he does real estate. He's on the Boston Business Journal's list of most influential people under 40. He's worth something like $50 million, maybe more. His company has restored half the historic buildings in this city." Maya grabbed her phone and pulled up a photo. "Is this him?" Keira looked at the screen. There was Bennett in a sharp suit, standing in front of a beautiful renovated building, looking serious and professional and powerful. "Yes, that's him." "Oh my God, you're going on a date with Bennett Lawrence." "Do you know how many women in this city would kill for that opportunity?" "It's just dinner," Keira protested weakly. "Nothing with men like that is just dinner, trust me." Maya grinned. You need to look absolutely stunning tonight." Keira went home early, claiming a headache that was not entirely a lie. Her nerves were making her head pound. She spent 2 hours trying on every dress in her closet before finally settling on a simple navy blue sheath dress that Maya had once told her made her look elegant. She left her auburn hair down in loose waves and kept her makeup natural. No point in trying to be something she was not. Bennett arrived at exactly 6:30, punctual to the minute. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white button-down with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Casual but polished, he looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "You look incredible," he said. "So do you." The restaurant was everything he had promised. Small, intimate, tucked away on a side street in the North End. The owner greeted Bennett like family, kissing both his cheeks and ushering them to the best table by the window. Wine appeared without being ordered, along with fresh bread and olive oil. "You really do know everyone in this city," Keira observed. "I've been here a long time," Bennett said. "And I make it my business to know the people who make Boston special. Marco here. He's been running this restaurant for 30 years, his grandmother's recipes. I helped him buy the building 5 years ago when his landlord tried to evict him to put in condos." "You bought a building to save a restaurant." "I bought a building to preserve something worth preserving. There's a difference." He poured her wine. "Not everything should be about maximum profit. Some things have value beyond money." They talked about everything. Keira told him about growing up in Connecticut, the daughter of 2 teachers, how she had fallen in love with art on a school trip to New York when she was 12. How she had worked her way through grad school waiting tables and bartending, determined to make a career in a field everyone told her was impossible to break into. Bennett told her about his father, a carpenter who had taught him to see the bones of a building, to understand structure and history. About losing his father to a heart attack when Bennett was 25 and channeling his grief into building something that would last. About the pressure of success, the loneliness of always being seen as a bank account instead of a person. "People treat you differently when they know you have money," he said quietly. "Everyone wants something. A job, an investment, a favor. It gets exhausting, never knowing if someone likes you or what you can do for them." "Is that why you didn't tell me who you were last night?" Keira asked. "Partly. Also, there were more pressing concerns, like making sure you were safe." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But yes, I liked that you looked at me like I was just a man who helped you. Not Bennett Lawrence, real estate mogul, just Bennett." "You are just Bennett to me," Keira said. "I still don't really understand the whole millionaire thing. You seem normal," he laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "You have no idea how refreshing that is." The food was extraordinary. Homemade pasta with sauce that tasted like summer tomatoes and basil, wine that was smooth and rich, dessert that made Keira close her eyes and sigh with pleasure. But it was the company that made the evening magical. Bennett was attentive without being overbearing, funny without trying too hard, interesting without being arrogant. He asked her questions and actually listened to the answers. He watched her with those dark eyes like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve, but in the best possible way. After dinner, he drove her home again but did not immediately let her out of the car. "I want to be honest with you about something," he said, turning to face her. "I don't do this. Date, I mean. I haven't seriously dated anyone in years. My life is complicated and I learned the hard way that most people can't handle it. But there's something about you, Keira. Something that makes me want to try." Her heart was pounding again. "I don't do this either. My last relationship ended 2 years ago." He said I loved art more than I loved him. He was probably right. I've been focused on my career ever since. And now I'm sitting in a car with a man I just met, feeling things I did not expect to feel, wanting things I probably should not want yet. She met his eyes. "You scare me a little, Bennett. This scares me. It's too fast, too intense." "I know," he said. "I feel it too. We can slow down if you want. Take our time. I'm not going anywhere." "What if I don't want to slow down?" The words were out before she could stop them. Bennett's eyes darkened. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "Then we don't slow down. We see where this goes. But Keira, I need you to understand something. When I commit to something, I'm all in. I don't do things halfway. If we really do this, I'm going to fall for you. Probably already started. So if you're not ready for that, if you think you might not want this, tell me now, before I'm in too deep." She should be sensible, cautious. This was crazy. She had known him for 24 hours. But when she looked into his eyes, all she felt was certainty. "I'm ready," she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and perfect. His hand cupped her face like she was something precious, and she felt herself melting into him, into this impossible moment that felt more right than anything she had ever known. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Bennett rested his forehead against hers. "I'm taking you out again tomorrow," he said, "and the day after that, and the day after that. I'm going to court you properly, Keira Owens. You deserve that." "Okay," she breathed. "Yes." He walked her to her door again, kissed her once more, and left her standing in her apartment feeling like her entire world had shifted on its axis. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of dinners and museums, and long walks through Boston Common. Bennett courted her exactly as he had promised, with old-fashioned romantic gestures that made her feel cherished. Flowers delivered to her office. Handwritten notes slipped under her apartment door. Surprise lunch dates where he showed up at the museum with Thai food and that devastating smile. He took her to the symphony and to Red Sox games. He showed her buildings he was restoring, walking her through construction sites and explaining his vision with the same passion she felt for Renaissance paintings. He introduced her to his world slowly, carefully, always making sure she was comfortable. Keira met his business partner, a sharp woman named Claire who ran the financial side of Lawrence Development. Claire took one look at them together and pulled Keira aside. "He's different with you," she said. "I've known Bennett for 10 years and I've never seen him like this. Happy, relaxed, human. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Bennett met Maya, who interrogated him like a protective big sister before declaring him acceptable. "But if you hurt her, I know people," Maya warned cheerfully. Bennett had just laughed and promised to guard Keira's heart with his life. They spent hours talking, learning each other. Bennett told her about his mother, who lived in Florida now, remarried to a retired teacher who made her laugh. About his sister Bridget, a doctor in California with 3 kids he rarely got to see. About the pressure of being successful, the weight of employing hundreds of people whose livelihoods depended on his decisions. Keira told him about her parents, still happily married after 35 years, living in the same small Connecticut town where she had grown up. About her brother Kyle, a high school English teacher following in their parents' footsteps. About her dreams of someday curating her own exhibition, of making a real contribution to the art world beyond just cataloging other people's genius. "You will," Bennett said with absolute certainty. "I've seen you light up when you talk about your work. You're brilliant, Keira. It's only a matter of time before the rest of the world sees it too." She fell asleep each night thinking about him, woke up each morning to texts that made her smile. Lived for the moments when she could see him, touch him, lose herself in conversations that lasted until 3 in the morning because neither of them wanted to hang up the phone. It was terrifying and exhilarating and perfect, but there were complications. Bennett's life came with obligations she was still learning to navigate. Business dinners where she felt out of her depth, surrounded by wealthy developers and city officials who spoke a language she did not understand. Charity galas where her museum salary did not come close to covering the expected dress code, though Bennett always insisted on taking her shopping, which made her uncomfortable even as she appreciated the gesture. "I don't want you to feel like you have to change," he said one evening when she protested yet another expensive dress. "But these events are part of my world and I want you by my side. Let me do this. It's not about the money, it's about us being partners." So she wore the beautiful gowns and learned to make small talk with Boston's elite. She met the mayor and several city councilors. She smiled for photographers and saw herself in society pages, identified as Mystery Woman with Bennett Lawrence. It was surreal and sometimes overwhelming, but Bennett was always there, his hand on the small of her back, grounding her. 1 month into their relationship, he took her to see a building he was considering buying in the Seaport district. It was an old warehouse, beautiful bones but decades of neglect. They walked through empty rooms with sunlight streaming through broken windows, their footsteps echoing on concrete floors. "What do you see?" Bennett asked. Keira turned in a slow circle, taking it in. "History. Potential. Something that was important once and could be important again." "Exactly." He pulled out architectural plans. "I'm thinking mixed use. Retail on the ground floor, offices above, residential on the top 2 floors. Preserve the exterior, make it modern inside. Bring life back to this space." "It sounds amazing." "The penthouse," he continued, watching her carefully. "I'm designing it for myself. I've been living in that apartment above the restaurant for 5 years and it's time for something more permanent. I want you to help me plan it." Keira's heart stuttered. "Bennett." "I'm not asking you to move in," he said quickly. "Not yet, but I want your input, your taste, your ideas. Because I'm hoping that someday, maybe not tomorrow or next month, but someday you might want to share that space with me. And I want it to feel like home to both of us." She looked at him standing in that empty building, sunlight catching his dark hair, his expression so open and honest and hopeful. This man who had stepped between her and danger without hesitation, who had pursued her with patience and respect, who looked at her like she was worth more than all his millions combined. "I'd love to help," she said softly. "And Bennett, someday doesn't feel that far away." His answering smile could have lit the entire city. They spent that afternoon sketching ideas, talking about finishes and layouts and all the details that would make a house a home. Bennett wanted to know her favorite colors, her ideal kitchen setup, where she liked to read. He took notes like he was planning a business proposal, but with an intensity that made it clear this was far more personal. Afterward, he took her to his office downtown. It was her first time seeing his workspace, and she was struck by how much it reflected him. Clean lines, quality materials, but comfortable. There were photos of buildings he had restored on the walls, architectural drawings scattered across a massive desk, a worn leather sofa that had clearly seen many late nights. And on his bookshelf, tucked among technical manuals, a small collection of art books, Renaissance paintings, her favorite period. "You've been studying," she said, touching the spines. "I wanted to understand what you love, why you love it." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I bought those the week after we met. I've been reading about perspective and composition and the difference between Florentine and Venetian styles." Keira turned in his arms, overwhelmed. "You did that for me." "I'd do anything for you," he said simply. "I think you know that by now." She kissed him then, deep and long and full of everything she was feeling but could not quite put into words yet. When they broke apart, Bennett was breathing hard, his control visibly fraying. "Keira," he said roughly, "if you keep kissing me like that, I'm going to have a very hard time being a gentleman." "Maybe I don't want you to be a gentleman right now." His eyes darkened. "You need to be sure, because once we cross this line, there's no going back for me. You're already under my skin, but this will make it permanent." "I'm sure," she whispered. "I've been sure for weeks. I'm falling in love with you, Bennett. I think I started falling that first night in the rain." He made a rough sound deep in his chest and kissed her again, harder this time, with less restraint. His hands tangled in her hair and she pressed closer, wanting to erase any distance between them. When he pulled back, his jaw was tight with tension. "Not here," he managed. "Not in my office like some kind of rushed affair. You deserve better than that. Let me take you home. Let me do this right." So he drove her to his apartment, and they took the elevator up in charged silence. Once inside, with the door closed behind them, Bennett took his time. He undressed her slowly, reverently, like she was art he was afraid to damage. He whispered against her skin how beautiful she was, how long he had been thinking about this, how much he wanted her. And when they finally came together, it felt like everything Keira had been missing her entire life suddenly clicking into place. Afterward, wrapped in his sheets with Boston's lights twinkling outside the windows, Bennett held her close and said the words she had been hoping to hear. "I love you, Keira. I'm completely, hopelessly in love with you." "I love you too," she whispered back. "So much it scares me." "Don't be scared. I've got you. I'm never letting go." They fell asleep tangled together, and Keira had never felt safer or more cherished in her life. The next morning, Bennett made her breakfast while she wore his shirt and sat on his kitchen counter, stealing bites of pancakes before they were done. He kissed her between flipping them, smiling against her mouth, and Keira thought this might be what happiness felt like. Real, solid happiness. "What are your plans today?" he asked. "I have to go to the museum. We're starting to plan the spring exhibition." She took a sip of coffee. "What about you? Meetings most of the day. But tonight I want to take you somewhere. There's someone I want you to meet. Should I be nervous?" "No," he said, squeezing her hand. "Just be yourself. That's all you ever need to be." That evening, Bennett picked her up and drove them out of the city, heading north along the coast. They talked and laughed, and Keira watched the ocean appear and disappear between houses as they drove. Finally, he pulled up to a beautiful Victorian home perched on a cliff overlooking the water. "Where are we?" Keira asked. "This was my father's house. My sister and I inherited it when he passed. Bridget's in California, so I come here sometimes when I need to think, to remember." He looked at her. "I want to share this with you, this part of my life." Inside, the house was filled with memories. Photos of Bennett as a boy with a tall man who had the same dark eyes. Tools carefully organized in a workshop. Blueprints and sketches covering a desk. It was clear Bennett had kept everything exactly as his father had left it. "He would have liked you," Bennett said softly, looking at an old photo of his father on a job site. "He always said the best things in life were the ones you built with your own hands. He built buildings. I think I'm trying to build something different, a life, a family, something that matters beyond just structures and money." Keira wrapped her arms around him from behind. "You're doing a good job." He turned and pulled her close. "I brought you here because I need you to understand something. This house represents where I came from, who I was before the money and the success. That guy is still in here somewhere. The one who learned to swing a hammer at 10 years old, who helped his dad on job sites every summer, who wanted nothing more than to make his father proud." "He'd be so proud of you," Keira said. "Look at what you've built. Not just buildings, but a legacy. You're preserving the history of this city while creating its future." "I want to build a future with you," Bennett said. I know it's fast. I know we haven't been together long. But I'm 34 years old and I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. You make me want things I'd stopped believing in. Marriage, kids, growing old with someone who sees me, really sees me, not just what I can provide. Tears sprang to Keira's eyes. I want that too, all of it. Then stay with me tonight. Here. Let me show you the stars over the ocean. Let me make love to you in the place that means the most to me. Let me prove that this is real. So she stayed, and they watched the sun set over the Atlantic from the porch, wrapped in a blanket together. They talked about their dreams for the future, about the children they might have someday, about how they would navigate the complications of their different worlds. Bennett told her stories about his father, about learning to see beauty in old buildings and finding purpose in preservation. Keira told him about the exhibition she was planning, how she wanted to showcase women artists who had been overlooked by history. You're going to change things, Bennett said. You're going to make people see art differently. I believe in you, Keira. Whatever you need to make your dreams happen, I'm here. Not my money, though that's available if you want it, but me. My support, my encouragement, my absolute faith in your brilliance. That night, in his father's house with ocean waves crashing below and moonlight streaming through old windows, they made promises to each other. Not official vows, not yet, but commitments just as binding. To trust each other, to support each other's dreams. To build something together that would last longer than any building or painting. Something that would matter more than money or success. 3 months into their relationship, Bennett surprised her at the museum with a proposal that had nothing to do with marriage. I want to fund your exhibition, he said without preamble, standing in her office doorway looking unfairly handsome in his business suit. What? The exhibition on overlooked women artists. The one you've been trying to get approved for 2 years but can't get funding for. I want to fund it. Anonymous donation if you prefer, but I want to make it happen. Keira stared at him. Bennett, that would be at least $500,000. So I can't let you do that. Why not? He closed the door and came to sit on the edge of her desk. I donate to museums all the time. It's a tax write-off. But more importantly, it's something you care about, something that matters. Why wouldn't I want to make it happen? Because people will say I'm using you, that I'm only with you for your money. His jaw tightened. Let them say it. I don't care what people think. I care about you getting the recognition you deserve, about these artists getting the exhibition they should have had decades ago. This is important, Keira. It matters. Let me help. She wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say yes. But the thought of people thinking she was with Bennett for his money made her feel sick. She had worked so hard to build her career on her own merit. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. He kissed her forehead. But Keira, there's no shame in accepting help from someone who loves you. That's what partners do. They support each other. That night she called her mother for advice. Susan Owens had always been her sounding board, the voice of reason when Keira's emotions got too tangled. Sweetheart, her mother said after hearing the whole story, are you in love with this man? Yes, completely. And is he in love with you? He says he is. He shows me every day. Then the money doesn't matter. What matters is that he sees something you're passionate about and wants to help make it happen. That's not using someone, that's partnership, that's love. Her mother paused. Your father and I didn't have much when we got married. But when I wanted to go back to school to finish my degree, he worked 2 jobs to make it happen. Was that me using him? Or was that him loving me enough to sacrifice for my dreams? Keira felt tears sliding down her cheeks. You're right. You're always right. I'm your mother. It's my job. Now bring this Bennett home so we can meet the man who rescued our daughter and swept her off her feet. Your father wants to interrogate him properly. The next day, Keira accepted Bennett's offer. The museum board was thrilled. especially when Bennett agreed to match any other donations that came in for the exhibition. Within a month, Keira had a budget that would let her bring in pieces from collections around the world. Her dream exhibition was becoming reality. But more importantly, she learned to let Bennett help her. To accept that his support came from love, not from any desire to control or obligate her. It was a new experience, being with someone who celebrated her success instead of feeling threatened by it. Bennett threw himself into the exhibition planning with the same intensity he brought to his development projects. He attended meetings with potential lenders, charmed collectors into loaning precious pieces, even helped Keira write grant applications. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to be part of something she cared about. "You're really into this," Keira observed one evening as they reviewed potential catalog layouts at his apartment. "Are you kidding? This is fascinating. I'm learning so much about art history, about these women who were painting masterpieces while society told them they shouldn't even be holding a brush. It's like discovering a whole hidden world." He pulled her onto his lap. "Plus, watching you in your element is incredibly sexy. You get this look in your eyes when you're talking about paintings like nothing else in the world exists. I love that look." She kissed him, deep and thorough. "I love you. Have I mentioned that recently? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry." "I love you," she repeated. "I love how you make my dreams feel possible. I love how you listen when I talk about work. I love that you care about things beyond just making money. I love your hands and your smile and the way you look at me like I'm something precious." "You are precious," he said seriously. "You're everything, Keira. I didn't know I was only half alive until I met you. You make me whole." 4 months in, Bennett took her home to meet his mother in Florida. Margaret Lawrence was a petite woman with kind eyes and Bennett's smile. She welcomed Keira with a hug that felt like coming home. "So you're the girl who's made my son forget about work for the first time in 10 years, Margaret said. "I like you already." The weekend was filled with stories about Bennett as a child, embarrassing photos that made him groan and Keira laugh, and long conversations on the back patio while Bennett grilled fish and pretended not to be listening to his mother reveal all his secrets. "He's different with you," Margaret told Keira privately while they were making salad. "Lighter. Happier. After his father died, Bennett threw himself into work like it was the only thing that mattered. I worried he'd forgotten how to live, but you've reminded him." "He's reminded me too," Keira said. "I was so focused on my career that I'd forgotten there could be more. He makes me want balance, a full life, not just a successful one." "Then you're good for each other." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Hold on to that." On the flight home, Bennett was quiet. "Finally," he said, "my mom asked me when I'm going to marry you." Keira's heart stopped. "What did you tell her?" "That I'm waiting for the right moment, that I want to do it perfectly because you deserve perfect." He took her hand. "But Keira, I want you to know it's not if for me, it's when. When you're ready, when the time is right, I'm going to ask you to spend the rest of your life with me, and I'm going to hope like hell you say yes." "I'd say yes now," she whispered. "I know, but I want to court you properly first. Old-fashioned, remember. I want you to be so sure that you never have a moment of doubt." He kissed her knuckles. "You're worth the wait." That summer, Keira finally took Bennett home to Connecticut to meet her parents. She was nervous in a way she had not been with his mother. Her parents were wonderful but protective, and they had strong opinions about the kind of man who deserved their daughter. But Bennett won them over immediately. He helped her father fix the deck without being asked, complimented her mother's garden with genuine appreciation, and sat through dinner answering questions about his business and his intentions with patience and honesty. "I love your daughter, Mr. Owens," Bennett said over coffee. "I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect or that I can promise an easy life. My work is demanding, and there are complications that come with money. But I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure Keira knows she's loved and valued and cherished. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Keira's father studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right then, you have my blessing, don't mess it up. I won't, sir, I promise. Later, walking through her childhood neighborhood, Keira leaned against Bennett's shoulder. That went well. Your dad threatened me with bodily harm if I hurt you, Bennett said cheerfully. I respect that, shows he loves you. Everyone loves me lately, Keira mused. I'm not used to it. For years it was just me and my work. Now I have you and this whole life I didn't plan for. It's overwhelming sometimes. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming. Good, definitely good, just different. She stopped walking and turned to face him. I spent so long thinking love meant losing yourself in someone else. My ex wanted me to be smaller, quieter, more available. He made me feel like my passions were problems. But you're different. You make me feel like I can be bigger, like my dreams matter as much as yours. They matter more, Bennett said, because making you happy has become my biggest dream. The exhibition opened in October, 6 months after Bennett's initial offer to fund it. The museum was packed with critics, collectors, and art lovers eager to see the collection Keira had assembled. Pieces from private collections that had not been publicly displayed in decades. Paintings by women whose names had been forgotten by history, but whose talent was undeniable. Keira gave the opening remarks, her voice steady despite her nerves. She talked about the artists, about recovering lost voices and recognizing overlooked genius. About the importance of questioning who gets remembered and why. About how art could change perspectives and challenge assumptions. Bennett stood in the back of the crowd, watching her with undisguised pride. When she finished and the applause erupted, he was the first person she looked for. Their eyes met across the room, and she saw everything she needed to see in his expression. Love, support, absolute certainty that she had just done something remarkable. The reviews were incredible. The Boston Globe called it the most important exhibition of the year. Art journals praised her scholarship and curatorial vision. Suddenly, Keira was not just an assistant curator. She was someone people took seriously, someone with a voice that mattered in the art world. A week after the opening, her boss called her into his office and offered her a promotion. Senior curator, with her own budget and the authority to plan major exhibitions. It was everything she had been working toward for years. She said yes immediately, then ran out of the museum to find Bennett. He was in a meeting downtown, but she didn't care. She burst into his conference room, ignoring the shocked looks from the people around the table. I got promoted, she announced. Senior curator. Bennett was on his feet in an instant, sweeping her into his arms. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. He apologized to his meeting, postponed the rest of the discussion, and took Keira out to celebrate. They went to the restaurant where they'd had their first real conversation, the place where everything had started. Marco brought champagne and declared their love story his favorite. To you, Bennett said, raising his glass. To your talent, your hard work, and your incredible mind. You've earned every bit of this, Keira. You're extraordinary. I couldn't have done it without you, she said. The exhibition, the confidence to push for what I wanted, all of it. You believed in me before I believed in myself. That's not true. You've always believed in yourself. You just needed someone to remind you that you were allowed to dream big. He set down his glass and took both her hands. But I'm glad I get to be that person. Being part of your success is one of the greatest privileges of my life. That night, wrapped in his arms in the bed they now shared most nights, Keira felt complete in a way she never had before. She had her career, her passion, her purpose. And she had Bennett, who made all of it sweeter. "I've been thinking," Bennett said into the darkness. "The penthouse in the Seaport building is almost done. Move in with me, officially. Stop splitting time between your apartment and mine. Let's make this permanent. Are you sure?" Keira asked, even though her heart was already saying yes. "I've been sure since about the second week I knew you. I'm just waiting for you to catch up." She felt him smile against her hair. "But I won't push. Take your time. Just know that there's a home waiting for you whenever you're ready, our home." "I'm ready," Keira said. "Let's do it. Let's move in together." Bennett's answering kiss told her everything she needed to know about how much that meant to him. They moved in together in November, combining their lives in the beautiful penthouse Bennett had designed with her input. Keira's books mingled with his on custom shelves. Her art prints hung beside his architectural drawings. Her coffee mug sat next to his in the cabinet, and her toothbrush had a permanent place in the bathroom. It was domestic and comfortable and perfect. Living together revealed all the small intimacies that dating had kept hidden. Bennett singing off-key in the shower. Keira spreading work across the dining room table late at night. His addiction to terrible action movies. Her inability to remember to charge her phone. The way he always made her coffee exactly right without asking. The way she left notes in his lunch when he had big meetings. All the tiny details that made a relationship real. They had their first fight over something stupid. Bennett worked late without calling, and Keira got worried and then angry. She yelled about him being inconsiderate. He snapped back about her being paranoid. They went to bed angry, sleeping on opposite sides of the bed, and it was miserable. Bennett apologized first thing in the morning. "I'm sorry. You're right, I should have called. I got caught up in a problem with one of the buildings and lost track of time." "That's not an excuse. You deserve better than that." "I'm sorry too," Keira said. "I overreacted. You're allowed to work late. I just worry about you. I know. And I love that you worry. It means you care." He pulled her close. "Let's not do that again. The going to bed angry thing. It's awful." "Agreed. Next time we talk it out even if we're mad. Deal." The fight actually made them stronger. It proved they could disagree and work through it without the relationship crumbling, that they were committed enough to push past the hard moments. Winter came, and with it the holidays. Keira and Bennett hosted Thanksgiving at the penthouse, bringing together her parents, his mother and her husband, Keira's brother and his girlfriend, and a handful of close friends. The apartment was full of laughter and food and love, and looking around the table, Keira felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This life she had stumbled into that rainy night when Bennett had stepped between her, and danger had become more than she ever imagined possible. She had love and purpose, and a future bright enough to make her dizzy. After everyone left and they were cleaning up, Bennett pulled her away from the dishes and led her to the living room. Boston's lights sparkled below them through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and snow was starting to fall. "I know I said I wanted to wait for the perfect moment," Bennett said, his voice suddenly nervous. "But I realized something today. Every moment with you is perfect. I don't need some elaborate setup or grand gesture. I just need you and this feeling right here." He dropped to one knee and Keira's hands flew to her mouth. "Keira Owens, you walked into my life on a dark, rainy night and you've been bringing light ever since. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You inspire me to be better. You've taught me that love doesn't make you smaller, it makes you bigger. And I want to spend the rest of my life being bigger with you." He pulled out a ring box. "Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, an emerald-cut diamond set in platinum, elegant and classic and perfect for her. But Keira barely saw it. She was too busy looking at Bennett's face, at the hope and love and vulnerability in his eyes. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood and kissed her like she was oxygen and he had been drowning. Keira melted into him, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "I love you," she said against his mouth. "I love you so much, Bennett. I love you too, so much. Forever." They called their families that night, hearing the joy in their voices as they shared the news. Her mother cried. His mother laughed and said she had been waiting for this since Florida. Everyone was thrilled and the congratulations poured in. But eventually, it was just the two of them again, curled up together on the couch, Keira's hand resting on Bennett's chest so she could watch the ring sparkle. "When do you want to get married?" Bennett asked. "Soon," Keira said. "I don't want to wait, is that crazy?" "No, I feel the same way. Why waste time when we both know this is it?" He kissed her temple. "Spring wedding. Give us time to plan something nice, but not so long that we're waiting forever." "Perfect. Spring is perfect." They planned the wedding together, keeping it relatively small and intimate. Just family and close friends at a historic estate outside Boston that Bennett had helped restore years earlier. The ceremony would be outside if weather permitted, surrounded by gardens that would be blooming by May. Keira found a dress that made her feel like herself. Elegant but not fussy, romantic but not overly traditional. Bennett refused to let her see his suit, insisting he wanted the first look to be genuine. They argued playfully about flowers and cake, and whether to have a band or a DJ, compromising on everything because neither of them cared about the details as much as they cared about the end result of being married. Work continued for both of them. Bennett broke ground on a new project in Cambridge, converting an old factory into affordable artist housing. Keira started planning her next exhibition, this one focusing on the intersection of art and social justice. They were both busy, both passionate about their work, but they never let it come between them. They made time for each other. Date nights where phones were forbidden. Weekends at the beach house that had been Bennett's father's. Quiet mornings drinking coffee and reading the paper together. All the small moments that built a life together. In March, 3 months before the wedding, something happened that tested them in a way they had not anticipated. A story ran in one of Boston's gossip columns, suggesting that Keira had only gotten her promotion because of her relationship with Bennett, that the museum was receiving substantial donations from him, and that she was essentially buying her career advancement. Keira was devastated. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much to build her reputation on merit. Seeing it reduced to nepotism and gold digging made her physically ill. "It's not true," Bennett said fiercely when she showed him the article. "Everyone who knows you earned that position. Your exhibition was brilliant. Your scholarship is impeccable. This is just gossip." "But there's enough truth to make people wonder," Keira said miserably. "You do donate to the museum. You did fund my exhibition. What if people always assume I only succeeded because of you? Then they're idiots who don't know what they're talking about." He pulled her into his arms. "Keira, listen to me. I've watched you work. I've seen how dedicated you are, how brilliant. Yes, I funded one exhibition. But I didn't write your proposals or choose the pieces or handle the negotiations with lenders. I didn't give your opening speech or write the catalog essays. That was all you. Your talent, your vision, your hard work. I just hate that people are saying these things. I know. And I'm sorry that my money puts you in this position. But sweetheart, there will always be people who try to tear down successful women, who assume they must have slept their way to the top or used connections instead of earning it. The only way to fight that is to keep being excellent. Keep doing work that speaks for itself, and eventually the truth becomes undeniable." He was right. Keira knew he was right, so she held her head high, ignored the gossip, and threw herself into her work. Within 2 weeks, 3 major art publications ran pieces praising her curatorial vision and scholarly contributions. Her boss publicly stated that her promotion had been based solely on merit, and that the museum was fortunate to have her. The gossip faded, replaced by genuine recognition of her talent, but it had been a reminder that their relationship would always face scrutiny. That people would always question whether she was with Bennett for his money, whether he was using his wealth to smooth her path. They would have to develop thick skin and unshakable trust in each other. "I'm not going anywhere," Keira told Bennett one night. "Just so you know, if people want to talk, let them. You're worth it. We're worth it." "I'm not going anywhere either," he promised. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The wedding day arrived in late May, warm and sunny with a breeze off the ocean. Keira stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by her mother and Maya and Bennett's sister Bridget, who had flown in from California. Her dress fit perfectly, her hair was twisted up in soft curls, and she felt like she was floating. "You look beautiful," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "So happy." "I am happy," Keira said. "I didn't know I could be this happy." The ceremony was everything they had hoped for. Keira walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and when she saw Bennett waiting for her at the altar, everything else disappeared. He looked incredible in his dark suit, his eyes locked on her with such love that she felt it like a physical force. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Bennett promised to support her dreams, to challenge her when she needed it, to love her through every season of life. Keira promised to stand beside him, to believe in him even when things got hard, to build a life with him that honored both their pasts and their future together. When the officiant said they could kiss, Bennett cupped her face gently and kissed her like it was the first time and the 1,000th time all at once. Their guests erupted in applause, but Keira barely heard them. She was too focused on the man in front of her, her husband, her partner, her love. The reception was joyful and relaxed. They danced with each other and with their parents. They cut the cake and toasted with champagne. They laughed with friends and posed for photos and soaked in every moment of celebrating their love with the people who mattered most. But Keira's favorite moment came late in the evening when she and Bennett snuck away from the party for a few minutes alone. They walked through the gardens, her hand in his, just being together in the quiet. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Lawrence?" Bennett asked. "Like the luckiest woman alive," she said. "How about you, Mr. Lawrence?" "Like I can't believe you said yes. Like I'm going to spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." He stopped walking and pulled her close. "Thank you for marrying me, Keira. Thank you for taking a chance on me that night in the rain. Thank you for seeing past the money and the complications to the man underneath. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for stepping between me and danger," Keira said softly. "Thank you for protecting me and pursuing me and never giving up on us. Thank you for making me believe in love again." They kissed in the garden as the sun set, beginning their married life exactly as they had begun their relationship. Together, committed, and absolutely certain they had found something worth holding on to forever. A year later, Keira stood in the nursery of their penthouse, her hand resting on her growing belly, and marveled at how much life could change in such a short time. She was pregnant with their first child, a daughter they planned to name Grace after Bennett's grandmother. The nursery was painted soft yellow, filled with books and art prints chosen carefully to inspire creativity. Bennett came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her and resting his hands over hers on her stomach. "How are my girls?" he asked. "We're good. She's been kicking all morning. I think she's going to be a soccer player, or a dancer, or a martial artist, or whatever she wants to be." He kissed Keira's neck. "As long as she's happy and healthy, I don't care." Keira leaned back against him, content. Her latest exhibition was getting rave reviews. Bennett's affordable housing project had won awards. They were building their life together exactly as they had promised they would, brick by brick, day by day. "Do you ever think about that night?" Keira asked. "When you first saw me, all the time. I think about how close I came to not being there, to missing you entirely. I almost skipped that dinner. I was tired and wanted to go home. But something made me go, and then something made me notice you, and then instinct told me to follow. It felt like fate." "I used to not believe in fate," Keira said. "I thought we made our own destiny through hard work and choices. But now I'm not so sure. Maybe sometimes the universe puts people in each other's paths for a reason. If that's true, then I'm grateful every day that the universe gave me you." They stood there together, watching the sunset paint their city in shades of gold and rose, preparing to welcome new life into their love story. Keira thought about the scared woman she had been that rainy night, certain someone was following her, not knowing her life was about to change forever. Bennett had stepped between her and danger without hesitation. He had protected her, pursued her, loved her with a steadiness that had changed everything. He had taught her that love could be partnership, that success was sweeter when shared, that the right person would never ask her to be smaller but would help her grow. And in return, she had given him her whole heart, her trust, her passion, her commitment to building something that would last. They had faced obstacles and gossip and the complications that came with their different worlds, but they had faced it all together. Now, with a baby on the way and a life full of love and purpose, Keira knew with absolute certainty that she had found her forever. "I love you," she said, turning in Bennett's arms to face him. "I love you too," he said, kissing her softly. "Forever and always." Their daughter was born on a snowy December morning, perfect and healthy, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's determination. They named her Grace Margaret, honoring both grandmothers, and from the moment Bennett held her, Keira knew their family was complete. Well, for now anyway. They had talked about having more children eventually, but for the moment, they were focused on soaking in every second with Grace, learning the rhythms of parenthood together. Bennett was a natural father, patient and gentle and completely devoted. He sang to Grace in the middle of the night when she couldn't sleep. He changed diapers without complaint. He stared at her for hours like she was the most fascinating thing he had ever seen, which to him, she probably was. Keira watched him with their daughter and fell in love with him all over again. This man who had rescued her from a stranger on a dark street now cradled their child with such tenderness it made her heart ache. He was everything she had ever wanted but had been afraid to hope for. Partner, protector, provider, lover, father, friend. Their life settled into a new normal. Keira worked part-time from home for the first few months, then gradually returned to the museum as they found a rhythm with childcare. Bennett adjusted his schedule to be home more, delegating responsibilities so he could be present for the moments that mattered. They made it work because they were committed to making it work. They communicated, compromised, and never lost sight of why they had started this journey together. Love. Pure, simple, complicated, beautiful love. Grace's first birthday came faster than either of them could believe. They threw a small party at the penthouse, surrounded by family and friends who had supported them from the beginning. Keira's parents were there, doting on their granddaughter. Bennett's mother flew up from Florida, bringing photo albums to embarrass her son. Kyle brought his fiancée, who was pregnant with their first child. The family was growing, expanding, creating new connections and traditions. That night, after everyone had gone home and Grace was finally asleep, Bennett and Keira stood in their living room, surveying the wreckage of birthday decorations and torn wrapping paper. "We should clean this up," Keira said without moving. "We should," Bennett agreed, also not moving. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and started swaying gently, dancing to music only they could hear. "Or we could do this instead." Keira laughed and rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I like this option better. 2 years ago, Bennett said softly. I was working late, heading home alone when I saw a woman being followed through the rain. I had no idea that stepping in to help her would change my entire life, that she would become my everything. 2 years ago, Keira replied. I was terrified, running from danger when a stranger appeared and kept me safe. I had no idea that stranger would become my husband, the father of my child, the love of my life. Best decision I ever made, Bennett said. Stepping between you and danger. Not walking away, taking a chance on whatever was happening between us. Best thing that ever happened to me, Keira said. Being rescued by a millionaire who turned out to be so much more than his money, who turned out to be the man I had been waiting for my whole life without knowing it. They danced in the dim light of their living room, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built together. A life full of love and laughter, challenges and triumphs, ordinary moments made extraordinary by their presence in each other's lives. And when they finally went to bed that night, wrapped in each other's arms with their daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall, both of them felt the same profound gratitude. For rainy nights and dangerous strangers. For millionaires who stepped between darkness and light. For love that was patient and kind, and strong enough to weather any storm. For finding each other against all odds and building something that would last forever. Their story had begun with danger and ended with joy. It had taken them from strangers to lovers to partners to parents. And every step of the journey had been worth it, because some loves are destined, some connections are fate, and some strangers are meant to become family. Don't look, he had said, stepping between her and the man who had been following her home. But Keira had looked anyway. She had looked at Bennett Lawrence and seen her future, and it had been more beautiful than anything she could have imagined.